Continue today with the ninth chapter of the book of Hosea. Al tismach Yisrael el gil ka'amim, ki zanita me'al Elohecha, ahavta etnan al kol garnot dagan. So not surprisingly, I mean, I don't know why they would rejoice, but Hosea tells them, don't be happy, don't be joyful, don't rejoice, Israel, as other people, get excited and exult because you have gone away from the path of God. And the word there, right, like many other places in this book, znut, this idea of cheating, infidelity, prostitution, whatever word you want to use, going back even right to the first chapter with the commandment of Hosea to marry the woman who was a cheater. You have loved a prostitute's fee, but every threshing floor of new grain. So the word etnan is used in the Torah. It talks about you can't bring a sacrifice. That's an etnan zona. You can't bring a sacrifice that is that it comes from the fee of a prostitute. But that's what Bnei Yisrael have become. Everywhere and everything that they do is cheating, is infidelity against God. Goren vayekev lo yir'aim v'tirosh yichachesh ba. The threshing floor, the wine press shall not join with you, and new wine shall betray her. We know, right, in the Torah, it talks about Goren, talks about these items, Goren and Yekev, Tirosh, the things that God says you're going to get in the land of Israel. Lo yeshvu be'eretz Adonai, v'shav Ephraim Mitzrayim, u'va'ashur tamei yochelu. You won't be able to live in God's land. Ephraim will return to Egypt and shall eat impure food in Assyria. So why these two nations? Well, these are the two nations that in the past, the northern kingdom, the tribe of Ephraim, has tried to make alliances with to help them against other enemies. And so, right, what's going to happen? They're going to return to Egypt, which again is sort of the end of the relationship between God and his people. You're going back to Egypt. It's a place you're not supposed to go back, but that's what they're doing. And in Assyria, they'll eat impure food. Lo yisku l'Adonai yayin v'lo ye'ervu lo zivchehem, kelechem onim lahem kol ochlav yitama'u, ki lachmam l'nafsham lo yavo beit Adonai. It will be for them like food of mourners. All who partake in it are defiled. Right? They'll offer no libations of wine to God, no sacrifices. Their food will be only for their hunger. It will not come into the house of God, right? You think you can bring a sacrifice, everything's going to be fine. That's not the way it is, Hosea says. And so here, the food that you're going to have is not food of joy, not food of happiness, not food of coming close to God, but rather that of mourning. Matasu liyom moed, liyom chag Adonai. What will you do on the holidays, on the days of festivals of God? What are you going to do? Because right, you won't be in the Mishkan. You have no relationship with God, right? Because what's going to happen is, it's almost as commentaries explain, is it's going to be this ironic twist that the enemies are going to come and attack you on these days. Ki hine halchu mishod Mitzrayim tikapseim mof tikabrem, excuse me, machmad lechaspam kimosh yirashem choach. Right, you've grown from destruction with the silver. Egypt will remain strong. Egypt won't give in. Mof will receive them in burial. Weeds are their heirs. Prickly shrubs will occupy their old home. Right, everything's going to be destroyed. It's going to become weeds. It's going to become shrubs. It's just going to be destruction. It's going to be death. Bo yom hapekuda, bo ba'u yemei hashilum yedu Yisrael. The days of punishment, the days of when you will get your what's coming to you. It says here, the heavy guilt will be known to Israel. Right? If you think back, one of the things we talked about in this book, and also in the early book of, it's not earlier, it was written later, but Yechezkel, Yediat Hashem, the knowledge of God. Here, Bnei Yisrael are going to be known. They will know their destruction. Evil Hanavi Mishuga Ish Haruach Al Rov Avoncha V'Rabba Mastema. So the prophet was upset. The man who was a man of spirit, Ish Haruach. I think back when Moshe asked God to appoint in front of the people somebody with ruach, somebody with spirit. What has happened to that person? He has become a mishuga. And why has that happened? because you are being abused because of the suffering that you have, the avoncha. So the people even who were connected with a higher place, with good things in life, they too will suffer. So Ephraim im Elohai, Navi Pachya Kosh Kol Drachav, Mastema Bebeit Elohav. Ephraim watches for my God, just like the prophet, but there are traps everywhere he goes. There's going to be harassment in the house of God. And we pointed out yesterday, right, the temple, Beit HaMikdash, is not in the territory of Ephraim, it's in the territory of Yehuda, of the southern kingdom, not the northern kingdom. But presumably the idea here means all of Israel, is what the commentaries say. They've been as grievously corrupt as in the days of Givah. God will remember their sins and will punish their sins and their iniquities. What does it mean, kimei giv'ah? So it's not clear, but the general understanding, if you remember back to the end of the book of Shoftim, perhaps the worst story in our history, the story of what's called Pilegesh Begivah, the man who's this man who's Pilegesh, whose concubine runs away from him, and he goes to find her, and after a few days, right, her dad lets her go home with her husband, and on the way home, they can't get there on time because they've been delayed by the father-in-law so many times, and they end up the man who's there with his servants insists that they don't stop in a Yevus city, but stop in a city of Binyamin, and there the woman is gang raped, and he cuts up her body and sends it all over, and there's a civil war. It's perhaps the one of the low points of our history, and so God's going to remember that. That's in a sense who you are. Continuing verse 10, Kanavim bamidbar matzati Yisrael kivikura b'teina bereshita ra'iti avotechem hema ba'u va'al peor va'yinazru laboshet va'yushikutzim ke'ahavam. I found Israel at first, right? They were like grapes in the wilderness. They were like the first fig to ripen on a fig tree. I was so excited about them. But when they came to Baal Peor, they turned aside. They became as hated as they had been loved. And Baal Peor, all the way back, and this is the book of Bamidbar, where Bnei Israel leave God and worship idols, worship Baal Peor. There's a great plague that happens. So right, and it's showing for the same way I love them and I hated them. You think you're loved, you're going to be hated. You're not my nation that I choose. Ephraim ka'of yitofef kivodam mi leida umi beten umi herayon. So from birth, right? Herayon, from the womb, from the beten, me leida, from conception. Ephraim's kavod, Ephraim's glory will be like birds that fly away, right? It will be gone. It won't happen, right? It's going to disappear. It's not going to be there anymore. Ki im yigadlu et bneihem v'shikaltim me'adam ki gam oy lahem b'suri mehem. Even if they have children and they start to raise them, they're going to suffer, right? There's going to be mourning. I'm going to turn away from them. There's going to be death. There's going to be destruction. That's what's going to happen. And oy, this word that we've seen in this book, in the earliest book, oy, woe is to them. How terrible. We're in verse 13. Pasuk Gimel, Ephraim kasher ra'iti latur shetula binaveh, v'Ephraim lotzi el horeg banav. This is what's going to happen to Ephraim. Just as I've seen it with Tyre, right? There was a meadow planted. There was a field. But Ephraim is going to bring out his children to those who are going to kill those children, right? You think you're wealthy, you think things are peaceful, you think everything's going to be fine. It's not what's going to happen. Ephraim, your family is going to suffer. Tein lahem Adonai matitain, tein lahem rechem mashkil, v'shadayim tzomkim. So give to them a womb that miscarries and shriveled breasts, right? What's it saying? It's better for them not to have children. Let the baby die. Let not the baby suffer. Let him die in utero. Let the woman's breast not be able to give the baby milk. Don't let this baby grow up, and don't let it live a life of suffering. Ki ra'atam b'Gilgal ki sham sinetim al roam aleim mibeiti agar shem lo osef avatam kol sareim sorim. Their misfortune began all the way at Gilgal. I disown them at that point because of their evil deeds. I will drive them out. I will accept them no more. All of their officials, right? Listen to the alliteration here in the last two words, sarehem sorerim. It's right. A sar means an officer. Sorer, like a ben sorer umoreh, is a rebellious child, a disloyal child. So, right, this is how Ephraim has turned. Why Gilgal? So it's not clear 100%. Gilgal is the first place that Yehoshua encamps with Bnei Israel, right when he crosses over the Jordan River, and then goes from Gilgal, he goes and attacks Jericho. So it's almost like all the way at the beginning. From the second that they appeared in this land, there were tribes who already were disloyal and were rebellious against God. Pasuk Tet Zayin 16. Huka Ephraim Shorsham Yavesh Pri Val Ya'asun Gam Ki Yeledun V'Hei Mati Machamade Vitnam. Ephraim is going to be struck down. Their descendants are going to wither, right? They're going to be dry fruit. Even if they do have children, I will slay their offspring. Yimasem Elohai kilo shamulo, v'yunodedim bagoyim. My God rejects them because they have not listened to God, and they will go wandering amongst the nations. They will be lost. They will be cursed. They will be going in other places. And so here, and we see that this is, right, the prophecy Hosea gives. This is the time before the destruction of the northern kingdom, before their exile, before they are lost. And so here we see, unfortunately, another chapter we can use like chapter 2 and 3 back, where Hosea goes and reverts from the lo ami to ami, where he reverts from lo ruchama to God being with us. But at this point, that's not what he's saying. The cycle is done. No one is going to come to protect you, Ephraim. You will be lost. You will be gone. Just like Cain is sent out from God to be a wanderer. That's what's happening to Bnei Yisrael. They're being kicked out. They're being sent from the house of God, that is the land of Israel, where they will be wandering, and thus they will be easy prey for any predators all around.